love the way it was, but it's changing. And all that's left are memories and broken dreams.
Okay, if you'd like to start from the point where you were brought up from the holding cell, Max.
Yeah, okay, a security guard from Reliance came and he handcuffed me, which I found peculiar. One of them had already introduced herself as a PC, which you imagine a PC to be a police constable, but she obviously wasn't, which I found out later. I'll come to that. Yeah, they handcuffed me and they led me to the courtroom and a door which said, basically on the edge of the end of the door, it said dock. So I told them I was not going to go into the dock because I know it's part of the four corner ruling, and anything within four corners I understand to be fiction. So there's no point in going into the dock. You're tied. So I decided not to go into the dock. There was a bit of a kerfuffle about that. They didn't like that, but I'd refused. So they talked with the clerk of the court, who they didn't have a key on this side, so they had to get a key from the clerk of the court, who opened the door, and I went into the court. I asked from the doorway. I asked if they were all on their oath, so they had an idea of what was coming, I guess. And so I went and stood in the middle of the court, and they asked me if I would, the clerk of the court asked me if I would go over into the witness stand and take an oath. So I said to her, is that a four-cornered box? And she said, I'm not listening to any more of this rubbish, and take him back to the cell. And they took me off again, and they probably, I don't know what, I didn't see what happened to them, what they did. And I waited, I sat in the cell, and two of the men from Reliance came, and they told me that I'll get into trouble. And I'll be done for contempt of court, and I'll go down. So I said, when you say contempt of court, is that criminal or civil? If it's criminal, I want to know who the injured party is, and if it's civil, then let me see the contract. That kind of stopped that conversation. Then I was called back into the court again, and we went through the same rigmarole, going into the dock, or not going into the dock, going through. I passed quickly through the dock. Right, now I have to remember the sequence of events now. The first thing I asked them was whether they were on their oath or not. They kind of ignored me. I'm pretty sure I asked twice, and then the security guard beside me said, of course they're on their oath, they're magistrates. And I said, well, in that case, then they won't be put out if I asked them to affirm that for me. They didn't. Then the clerk asked me if I would take the oath, and I said, I will give you my oath. And I gave them my oath. I put my hand on my heart, which meant dragging the security guard's arm across me, because I was still handcuffed in the middle of the court. And I put my right hand on my heart and my left hand in the air, and I swore that the truth I would give them would be the truth that I know. Nothing more, nothing less. They didn't accept that, I don't think. At least it didn't go on that way. The lady of the court asked me my name, asked me if I was...
By the lady of the court, do you mean the clerk?
Sorry, the clerk of the court, yeah. Sorry, the lady who was apparently running the show. She asked me if I was Max Stutely Can, and I asked her, I said, is that the Sestwi K Trust that you're administrating today? I think that shook her a bit, because I don't think she knew what it was. And so I asked her again, and no answer. And she asked me again if I was Max Buchanan, and I said I'm the agent for that trust. And I asked, are you on your oath? Again, I asked, I think I must have asked about, or at least 8, 9 times if they were on their oath.
You didn't get a response any time?
No response at all. It was as if, we don't have to answer your questions. You have to do what we tell you. And I said, well, I will if you tell me.
And that would be because they're used to dealing with people in the dock.
Possibly, because in the dock,
Yeah.
you're
a fiction.
You're a fiction. You're in the four corners, and you're a fiction. So they had to deal with a living being standing in the court, and of course they can't admit to a living being standing there because that would be the end of their fictional game, as far as I understand it. So I basically said to them, if you won't give me your oaths, you won't tell me you're on your oaths, I will have to assume that you're imposters. And then I asked, are you impersonating court officers? Which
That got a reaction.
It did get a reaction. The chief magistrate, I presume he was the chief magistrate. He was the one apparently.
Because there were 2 on the bench that day.
There were
weren't
2 on the bench. There was a youngish lady. I don't know.
She'll be pleased with that.
I'm no good with ages, but she was nice looking lady. She gave me a smile at the beginning. I said hello when I first came in. I said good morning. It seems the thing to do. You say hello to people, don't you?
It would be the honourable way to behave.
They didn't actually say hello to me. They didn't introduce themselves at all in any way, so I had no idea who they were even. So asking them if they're on their oath was at least, a reasonable question to establish that they are...
A baseline.
Yeah, and I didn't get it. I didn't get any of that. Then they decided, I'm trying to remember the exact... there was the only people in the court, I couldn't work it out why, but the court was empty apart from the 2 magistrates on the bench, the clerk of the court, the lady, 4 security guards, 2 were standing by the public entrance, and 1 was standing by the entrance to the cells, and the other one, of course, was chained to me. Chained to me. He really was. Now, I kept referring to the only person I could see who was actually recording anything, and that was the man from the Herald Express. I presumed he was. I'd seen him before, so I figured I knew who he was. I figured him to be a reporter, and I could see he was writing things. So I kept telling him, "Can you make sure you note that, please?" Because I couldn't see any other record being taken at all. So after they refused to give me their oath, and I'd given them my oath, they carried on as if nothing had happened. It was as if
you weren't there.
They tried to ignore me, but I mean, I really was there. I wasn't, I'd called them imposters, I'd called them impersonating court officials. They knew I was there. And at one point they asked me if I was willing to pay. And I told them that I'd already written to their company expressing the acceptance upon, well, I think you call it condition. I always get this mixed up. I think it's conditional acceptance. I gave them 2 notices.
You're right there, yeah.
2 notices I gave them in the courtroom of notices that I'd previously given Her Majesty's, I'd sent to by Royal Mail, so they got them, special delivery. They were conditional acceptance on the condition I will pay every penny that my person apparently owes, on condition that I get a lawful contract and a true bill. And as I wrote in my notice, if I don't hear from you in, I don't know, 10 or 20 days, whatever it was, then we agree. All parties will agree. And so I didn't hear from them, so I assumed that...
They were looking for the bill?
Yes, they were looking for the bill and the contract. Now, the clerk of the court actually looked at them and read them, or read some of them, and passed them up to the magistrate and said these would have no bearing on today's case. So
That would be because they were lawful,
well,
rather than legal documents.
well, they were lawful in the sense that they were notices signed and witnessed by 3 upstanding members of the community, with thumbprints and everything.
Honourable men.
Honourable men, as far as I know. I think they are. And they proceeded without really
Reference to them.
without reference to the documents, without reference to me. They just carried on, and they found my person guilty. And I, to be honest, I was still asking them if they were on their own.
Basically, you were processed.
I was processed, and they ignored me totally, and basically they wanted to get me out of there as quickly as possible, I felt. But you know, I honestly don't really know what the judgment was, because I mean, I've read about it in the paper afterwards. I don't remember them saying it. But the reason I was there was a bit odd, because they said that I'd been found guilty of driving without insurance, and I don't remember that being on the charge sheet the first time. So I don't remember it, as I say. But anyway, yeah, then they released me, and the Reliance staff, that was amusing. The Reliance staff said, "Thank goodness for that, we can go home now." It was, you know, just another day at work for them, which it is. That's all it is. It's a day of business.
Processing people. It's a
For
processing
me,
factory.
it's a life-changing moment. You know, but for them, it's just another day at work. So that was it really. And then I was released outside. Oh, I did have to get they returned my belongings to me. Well, they didn't return all my belongings. They still have a briefcase which they're refusing to give to me, because I won't give them the name of my person. I went down to the police station a couple of days ago, and I said, "Can I have it back?" And they won't give it to me unless I give them my name, my address, and my date of birth. So it's a bit of a funny situation, that one. I don't quite know what to do there. Yes, and I went outside to find there was a group of people outside and policemen, and so I thought, oh no, I'm not going to get arrested again, am I? But we didn't. We all left peaceably, and I think that's about it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that happened.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about the party, should we?
I know. I did ask if it was a de facto court.
Yeah. And what response did that get?
Nothing. And any of my questions, none of my questions.
Like talking to a sponge.
None of my questions were answered. I got blank faces from everybody in the court, except for when I looked at I suggested to the reporter that he'd like to write that down, please. He was smiling at me at times, which was nice. That gave me a bit of assistance in my brain, I suppose. I think that's about it. But de facto court, asked them if they're on their oath, mentioned the Sestry K Trust.
Yeah.
I mentioned that I was an agent for, and I asked them about the four-corner rule.
And declared them imposters.
And I declared them. I asked them if they were impersonating court officers, and I think you've seen on an earlier video that I showed the magistrate's reaction to that, which will go with me to my grave.
Well, thanks very much for that, Max.
That's great.
And we shall see how things progress.
Well, I'll keep you informed. And here I am.
Still believe